Please be seated, everyone. Thank you for being here for the August 28th meeting of Council, and I certainly am very pleased to see Councillor Stevens here. On behalf of all the Council and everyone here, our hearts go out to you and your family, and pleased to see you here today. I'd like to read a statement before we get to our agenda, and this relates to acknowledge our fire protective services we're actually in the gallery here tonight, but they have once again received accreditation status from the Commission on Fire Accreditation, or the CFAI. The CFAI is an international body that's located in the United States that's responsible for administering a comprehensive self-assessment and quality improvement model. Its goal is to ensure and enable fire and emergency services organizations look at their past, current, and future service levels and internal performance, and they compare them to current research and industry best practices. Over 230 agencies around the world have been accredited. Regina is one of them, and one of only 7 in Canada. This tells us that the fire service is an efficient, well-functioning emergency services organization that compares well with the highest standards in Canada, North America, and around the world. The Commission also provides recommendations to the fire service to make sure that even further improvements are made, which they are doing that right now. So Fire Chief Lane Jackson has stated that the fire service believes in continuously improving and adopting best practices wherever possible. What all this means is that they're working hard every day to ensure our community is safe, is as safe as it can be, and as safe as any community around the world. So I want to thank Fire Chief Jackson and his team for their hard work, and I want to name the people that are here tonight. Of course, Chief Jackson, Deputy Chief David Kinvig, Assistant Chief Justin McCullough, Accreditation Manager Paul Vayala, Assistant Chief Business Support and Technical Services Laura Markowicz, Assistant Chief Safety and Logistics Stephen Nelson, Assistant Chief Training Trevor Ryman, and Jennifer Lai, who's Head of Bylaw. And of course, I want to thank each and every one of the fire protective services for the work they do each and every day. Let's give them a great round of applause and acknowledgement. So with that, we will move forward on our agenda for tonight. Councillor Bryce.
Thank you. I'll move the agenda at the call of the chair.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Brashani. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The minutes for the July 31st meeting of City Council, if I could have a mover for that, please.
I would move the minutes.
Councillor Young. And seconder, Councillor Hawkins. Any errors or omissions, discussions on the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move into Executive Committee reports. Councillor Frindura.
Thank you, Worship. I rise to bring CR 17-83, appointment of an auditor.
Can you have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Flagel.
Thank you, Worship. The recommendation of Executive Committee August 9th that the Myers Norris Penny be appointed as an auditor of 2017 through 2021 to perform annual audit for the city and its legal entities.
Thank you for that. Other discussions on the report? Very straightforward. No discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Informational reports. To be Executive Committee once again. The semi-annual private closed Executive Committee. Councillor Frindura.
Thank you, Worship. Bringing IR 17-10, 2017 semi-annual review of closed Executive Committee items, and the committee looking for concurrence.
Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Massanelli. Mr. Clerk, do you have any comments by way of background on the report for us?
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is an annual regular report that comes before Council, and it merely summarizes those items that have been dealt with first in a closed Executive Committee meeting and that have come on forward to various committees, usually Executive Committee or Council. So it's just our way of formally acknowledging those items that have now received public endorsement by Council.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any comments on the report? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move forward to delegations and motions. Our first delegation, D 17-101, Tyler Gray. Mr. Gray, for the record, if you could identify yourself, who you represent. You have 5 minutes for your presentation, and there may be questions afterwards.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Fougere. My name is Tyler Gray. I'm with Carmichael Outreach here in Regina, Saskatchewan. I've been functioning as our communications advocacy and projects coordinator for the past 2.5 years. And it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening, Mayor Fougere, councillors, fellow delegations, and community members. Over the course of the last 4 years, we've had an opportunity to work with several partners, some who are present in this room, some who are not, working towards a goal that we've believed to be possible, which is the end of homelessness in our community. And I can't overstate enough the strong knowledge that's in this room, the depth of experience, and the partnerships that exist in this room. And it is with those partnerships in mind that we both excitedly and urgently express our strong support for the motion before Council tonight for the plan to end homelessness. A plan to end homelessness in Regina, in our opinion, is a very vital step in our journey as a community towards achieving the functional end of homelessness. Over the past 4 years, we've connected with many municipalities throughout Saskatchewan and Alberta to glean from their work towards ending homelessness. We've visited neighbors in Saskatoon as well as in Calgary and Medicine Hat with the opportunity in mind basically to learn about the effectiveness of their systems in data collection, strategic funding allocation, and long-range planning. When we toured through Medicine Hat, we found a community that had actually achieved functional zero. And their concentrated efforts as a municipality, or in simpler terms, I guess, the coordinated efforts of their community, have helped them to realize that achievement of functional zero, where there is no one person in their community who is experiencing chronic homelessness. During my trip to Medicine Hat, I recall sitting in the office with Jamie Rogers, who is the coordinator of their community services, and we were reviewing a list of the folks in their community that were sitting in shelter. And on that list, there were 4 names. 3 of those names were individuals who had been in the community for less than a week, and 1 was a person who had already been receiving services through the community and was in between housing placements. And the long and short of it was that they had actually achieved a result where nobody in their community was homeless for longer than a 10-day period, which is fascinating. So in a population of 70,000 people, 4 people were currently in a space where they didn't have access to housing. It was a moment of revelation, I guess, for me, and a vision about what was possible, and that was the end of homelessness in our community. No longer was it kind of a pipe dream or something that was just kind of a pie-in-the-sky idea. It was an actual, functional, achievable target. It's something that we've become passionate about at Carmichael Outreach, but we are also passionate, I guess, in seeing the action to come behind the plan. And I think the achievement of possibility at this point in time in our community would demand that we move towards that action. In each of the municipalities that we visited, where there's been successful interventions and reductions of homeless experiences, those successes have been driven by a targeted, measured plan built in concert with lived experiences, local organizations, and support knowledge, and implementation via the mechanism of municipal government as a strong champion of the cause. To that end, we cannot overstate our support for the motion presented before Council this evening, where our municipal leaders are actively taking the necessary responsibility of leadership, both in the terms of organizing and developing a plan to end homelessness, and in developing and reviewing the opportunities to financially contribute to the implementation of this plan, whether directly as a municipality or in direct advocacy to the provincial and federal governing bodies. We've been incredibly grateful for Councillor Andrew Stevens' work over the last several months since his election to Council. He's really spearheaded the efforts in developing a community plan to end homelessness with a lot of the organizations that are represented in this room tonight, and I'd be remiss if we didn't express that our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family during this incredibly difficult time, and it's good to see your face, and we wish the best for you and your family. A plan to end homelessness will not ensure that homelessness is ended in our community. This work will take the concerted and concentrated effort of business leaders, multiple levels of government, collaborative work amongst our community-based organizations, and a consistent pattern of listening to people with lived experience as they indicate the types of support that they need. That being said, a plan will provide us with a vital framework to function within.
You got just over 30 seconds.
Okay. So do I need to wrap up then?
No, well, you got 30 seconds more.
A plan is going to give us specific targets to achieve each year with ongoing evaluation and accountability to achieving the long-term goal of a city where no one faces the potential of a chronic homelessness experience. The spirit of this motion sees our municipal government occupying that place of leadership that we both encourage and affirm, leading the development of a plan to end homelessness, evaluating opportunities for financial investment, and functioning as the champion of our cause at a provincial and federal level are the important roles we believe we need our elected officials and city administration to fulfill. We strongly support this motion before Council, and in closing, offer the resources we have as an organization to work collaboratively to achieve its success.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray, for your presentation. Are there any questions of the delegation? You're very clear and concise. Okay, Councillor O'Donnell has a question. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thanks very much. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. I have a couple questions for you. I don't want to dig into the weeds, but it just, as you were talking, I thought about this a little bit, and based on your experiences in other areas, it seems to me that a number of people that are homeless are very transient as well. How does that work if a program can come forward? How do you identify the transient nature? Is it because they come forward for services or are picked up, or if you could help me on
just like at a broader community level, how do we identify who's experiencing homelessness?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a fully centralized system, an intake procedure that exists in our community now. It's been headed up by Phoenix Residential Society in partnership with the Homelessness Partnering Strategy and the YMCA. So individuals who would present to any organization in the community and identify that they were experiencing homelessness would be redirected to that intake procedure, which gives us basically a living list of the individuals in our community that are experiencing homelessness at any one given time. And through there's an assessment process that takes place that scores people on a priority basis. And at that point, we're able to direct our services that we currently have to provide services where most needed, and hopefully over a period of time reduce kind of some of the more chronic caseload and be able to target and provide services to folks who might need less chronic supports.
Okay, good. Thanks for that. And it's been a while since you've been before us, and as a deliverer of service on this topic, I know the Mayor is going to give me a little leeway. I wonder if you just give us an update on your potential move to a new facility.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have submitted some information to permits, and we were told that we needed to do a surface parcel tie. So we've completed that process with our legal firm that's been representing us on this matter, and we are currently finalizing a letter that comes back to the city and some work for Information Services Corp that will tie those parcels together, and then we have some drawings that we'll be submitting for permits, and hopefully about a month from now we'll be tendering, and late November, early December we'll move into our new location.
Good to hear. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Other questions of the delegation? Thank you very much. You can return to the gallery. We'll go on to our next delegation, Florence Stratton. Ms. Stratton, I know you're familiar with the process. If you could identify yourself, who you represent, you as well have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Florence Stratton, and I'm representing the Regina Anti-Poverty Network. I wish to begin by acknowledging that Henry Baker Hall, where I am making this presentation, is on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. Next, I wish to thank Mayor Fougere for his motion on ending homelessness. The situation is dire and requires immediate action. Officially, Regina has 240 homeless people. The actual figure is in the thousands. A vastly disproportionate number of Regina's homeless population is Indigenous, 75% according to a 2015 study. As I was preparing this presentation, the Facebook post of Heather Heyer, the young woman who was murdered while protesting a white supremacy rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, was much on my mind. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. In the 2016 municipal election, Mayor Fougere ran on a platform of ending homelessness. His stated preference as a solution to Regina's homelessness crisis was Housing First, a program that first finds permanent housing for people experiencing homelessness and then offers them support as needed. Surprisingly, the 2017 city budget included no money for Housing First. The main reason given was that the province was not putting any money into it. Currently, Regina's Housing First program only receives federal funding, a mere $700,000 annually. As a result, the program only has the capacity to house 26 people. The other 214 people on the official homelessness list remain just that, homeless. Mayor Fougere's motion is titled, "The Plan to End Homelessness in Regina." It's a motion we should all be able to get behind. There are, however, two things that worry me about it. First, 3 of the clauses of the resolution, numbers 1, 2, and 4, are about developing a plan to end homelessness. It seems to me there has already been an overabundance of such plans. There was the 2007 Regina Community Plan on Homelessness, the Mayor's 2 housing summits, and now the Mayor's Housing Commission. Did nothing come out of any of these? Now is the time for action, not more planning. It is a substantial financial commitment that's needed to end homelessness in Regina. This takes me to my other concern with the motion, the 3rd clause of the resolution, quote, "The City of Regina work with the federal government, the provincial government, and other interested parties in providing funding to achieve the goal of ending homelessness in Regina." I hope this clause does not mean that the City of Regina's commitment to providing funding depends on the provincial government also providing funding, as it seems highly unlikely that the province will do so. As I'm sure all of us here are aware, the province is currently planning to sell off its low-income housing units. Mayor Fougere has said on a number of occasions that the City of Regina cannot on its own solve Regina's homelessness crisis. He is right. For that to happen, there must be federal and provincial input. However, the City of Regina can take the lead and hence set an example for other levels of government to follow. Here's a simple 3-point funding plan. 1, the City of Regina commit to allocating $1.2 million annually to ending homelessness until there are no more homeless people in Regina. I've chosen that figure because $1.2 million is the amount City Council awarded the Brant Centre at its July meeting in support of hosting the 2018 Memorial Cup. Even in hard times, there does always seem to be money for sports facilities. Let's demonstrate the same concern for eliminating the suffering and misery that is homelessness in Regina. 2, the City of Regina asks local businesses to donate to the fund to end homelessness in Regina. 3, let's make it a community project. Many ordinary citizens would be happy to make a donation to end homelessness, myself included. Once again, I thank the Mayor for drawing our attention to Regina's homelessness crisis through his motion. I know I'm not alone in being outraged that in a city as wealthy as ours, more and more people are experiencing homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ratton, for your presentation. Are there questions? You were very clear. Thank you very much. You can return to the gallery, and our next delegation is Hillary Aiken. Ms. Aiken, if you can identify yourself for the record, who you represent, you have 5 minutes as well for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Fougere and councillors. My name is Hillary Aiken. I'm Senior Director of Housing with YWCA Regina. I, like Florence, want to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 4 territory tonight. As a multi-service agency, YWCA Regina supports women, families, and their community in a holistic way through our many programs and services. We're one of the many community organizations in Regina that provides an emergency response to homelessness through our shelter. But My Aunt's Place is the only 24-hour, low-barrier, trauma-informed shelter for women and children in Regina. In the 7 years since we opened, we have consistently operated at or above capacity. Last year, we turned away 327 women and 218 kids because we had no space for them. And just a couple months ago in June, in 1 month alone, we turned away 120 women. A research study in Regina in 2011 showed that over the course of 3 years, there were actually 4,500 different individuals who were homeless for at least one day. And research suggests that the number of Regina residents who are the hidden homeless could double or triple that. We at YWCA know that homelessness looks different for women. Many of the Regina residents living in hidden homelessness are women. Women might stay in unsafe or unaffordable situations in order to have shelter for them and their families. They're also more likely to have kids with them, live to old age, and more likely to lose housing due to violence. Because of this reality, combined with what we see every day in our work, we're encouraged by the work of the community to end homelessness, as well as the motion tonight pledging the city's support and involvement. The City of Regina has to be a key player in ending homelessness. In cities across the country that have made inroads, municipal leaders have been in a central role. Municipal leaders have the ability to engage provincial and federal counterparts, local service providers, and the private sector. We, like other community organizations, are very impatient for this work to begin, but do recognize the need for all of us to work together to accomplish the best outcome for the community. So can the city afford to invest in ending homelessness? I would say definitely, and in fact, the city can't afford not to. The city is currently responding to homelessness, but in one of the most expensive and inefficient ways, with the police force. Institutional responses to homelessness cost $66,000 to $120,000 annually, whereas supportive housing or affordable housing costs only $5,000 to $8,000 per year. This doesn't begin to recognize the economic benefits that are lost when someone is unable to work or contribute to a revenue base. Furthermore, a study from Europe states that there may be detrimental impact to tourism and trade from homelessness. We all know that we want to show visitors to our city the welcoming, safe, and healthy community that Regina can be. I encourage Mayor and Council to plan now for a substantial investment in implementing the plan to end homelessness. Investing $1 in housing today can actually earn our community money down the road. Finally, it's worth noting that homelessness disproportionately impacts Aboriginal people. The Regina point-in-time count showed that 75% of survey respondents self-identified as Aboriginal, yet represent only around 10% of our city's population. We commend the city for beginning the work of reconciliation in Regina. Now here is a perfect chance for action. Addressing homelessness will immediately improve the health and education outcomes for Aboriginal people living in homelessness. As treaty people, we all have a responsibility to take action. Homelessness can actually be a very easy issue to address. Build houses. But housing can also act as a policy fusion issue. It can help us build a better community. It's the first step towards improved health, safety, positive child development, and economic development in a community. In closing, I commend the city for expressing your involvement in ending homelessness and being part of this plan. I encourage you to match the resources currently offered by HPS for the creation of the plan, but more importantly, allocate substantial municipal resources for the implementation of the plan when it is completed next spring, and also to advocate to your provincial and federal counterparts for the same. With leadership and political will from this council, we can make ending homelessness a reality in our city. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Other questions? Thank you very much. You can return to the gallery and move on to our next delegation, Blair Roberts. Mr. Roberts, if you could as well identify yourself, who you represent, and you have 5 minutes as well for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Blair Roberts. I represent the YMCA of Regina. I am the Director of HPS Communications, and I am here to offer my support and encouragement for City Council to pass this motion. Under the umbrella of the Government of Canada's Homelessness Partnering Strategy Initiative, YMCA serves as the community entity for Regina and rural Saskatchewan. It is supported by Regina's Community Advisory Board to fund initiatives that are working to end homelessness in our city. A key priority of HPS funding is housing first. The philosophy and practice of housing those in homelessness and offering supports once they are housed. In 2015, the Community Advisory Board and the community entity issued a call for proposals to develop a housing first model specific to the needs of Regina. In 2016, Phoenix Residential Society was chosen to run Regina's initial Housing First program, showing great success during their initial year of running the program. Regina is ready to take the next step towards ending homelessness. The YMCA and the Community Advisory Board are committed to this process. We are excited for the city to partner with us in this endeavor and are grateful for their involvement in our current development of a call for proposals to start this process. The Community Advisory Board has allotted $60,000 in federal funding to bring this plan to fruition. We fully support and welcome additional financial support from the city to ensure that this plan is comprehensive, attainable, and done in partnership with the city. A plan to end homelessness is crucial for us to make progress as a city. We need to know what it means to end homelessness. Our goal in this process is to reach functional zero. Functional zero is a definition that speaks to a system of support being in place that will support those becoming homeless. For instance, Medicine Hat's definition of functional zero speaks to people not being homeless more than 10 days before being rehoused and supported. Red Deer has a timeline of 28 days. We hope that our city, through this plan, can reach functional zero sooner rather than later, with our own mix of realistic and ambitious timelines. How much will it cost to get there? How long will it take to get there? How many days should it take to rehouse people? Those are all important questions that we believe will be answered through this process and consultation. We also believe that the Affordable Housing Incentive Program should be renewed and geared specifically to support projects that work with those living in homelessness. The issue in Regina right now is not a lack of housing options, it's a lack of affordable options. If programs and policies that are already in place can be discussed and reevaluated to support those living in homelessness more directly, it could go a long way towards reaching functional zero and maintaining it for the long term. We support the city's desire to work in collaboration with provincial and federal government. We value the leadership role the city has taken in this matter and believe that their leadership can move the needle, encouraging more participation from other levels of government. While we are aware there is always a concern about the downloading of responsibilities onto the city, we see the City of Regina's leadership in this area as an encouragement for more involvement from all levels of government. I have letters of support with me from Steve Compton, CEO of Regina Food Bank, as well as Dustin Brown, Executive Director of Street Culture Project, and Cam Fraser, Minister at Knox Metropolitan United Church. Many want to see this move forward but could not attend this evening. I want to thank you for your time and consideration of this conversation, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with the city as we work to end homelessness in Regina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts, for your presentation. Other questions? Go ahead. Councilor Flagel?
Okay. Thank you and welcome. I had to read your script here because you had a lot of acronyms here that I just, whoa, what did you say? Okay. Question to you is, you mentioned affordable.
Yes.
In your world, what's affordable for this type of thing? Because I'm hearing lots of different numbers, anywhere from 400 to 1,100 is affordable, but then there's attainable, and then there's low income. So what's a dollar range in terms of a rent that would be
Sure.
work for you guys?
Generally, I think what's considered a standard is 30% of a person's income, not exceeding that. As far as a specific number, most of the people that are in homelessness or dealing with poverty that are on social assistance, I believe, get $459 a month that goes towards housing. So, and then they get, I can't remember exactly what the number is, but a lot of them are putting above and beyond that towards their housing. So their money that they get for food and necessities goes towards it as well. So as far as a specific number, I'm not exactly sure. I know that a lot of our housing partners right now are working with landlords, and a lot of those landlords are willing to knock off a little bit from the rent in order to fill the space because there is a high vacancy rate right now. So
Good. Well, that helps a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, the YMCA is building some places on 18 block Halifax Street. I think that's part of your
YMCA?
Yeah, isn't it? Why isn't Stephen Onita? Isn't he part of the Y? I thought he was. Sorry.
No, that's
There's a group of dwellings. Sorry, I'll just go on
okay.
that. There's a group of dwellings on 18 block Halifax Street being built, and they're supposed to be bachelor suites around the $400 range.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Is that what we should be shooting for in the world you're bringing forward, or should we going a little bit higher and different? Well, like, where do you see this all going? Because what kind of building should we be building to help ease the pressure here?
Well, I think the big gap that a lot of people are seeing in Regina right now is permanent supportive housing. A lot of people who are in chronic and episodic homelessness, so these are people with pretty high needs. There's not an apartment complex where we can bring the supports to a number of people. So that's something that we don't really have for people in Regina. So if we could get an apartment complex that could offer that somehow, that's something that we've advocated for. We've talked to the province about different options, and we're hoping that can become a reality.
Right.
A big philosophy of Housing First is scattered site housing, so we're not looking to just put everybody who's homeless in one giant facility necessarily.
Right. Exactly.
We do want to find places in different parts of the city and offer people choice of where it's going to be most healthy for them to live.
Right.
So
Thank you.
I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, no,
clearly.
that's good. It gives us a bit of a broad range. The other thing, last thing, is what's the number that you have in terms of homeless people in Regina?
Well, in 2015, we did a count that had 232. I think that number has been thrown around a bit, but I think I would agree with Florence's assessment that it's likely much, much higher than that, because that was a one-night count that didn't really deal with people who are sleeping on friends' couches. It didn't cover every area of the city. I believe there was a report in, well, I guess I don't want to reference it if I can't show you guys, but I believe there was a report in 2011 that said the number is likely thousands of people that are homeless throughout the year in Regina. So I don't know on any given night how many exactly. There is a plan for another point in time count to happen next year with federal funding.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councilor Flagel. Other questions? There are none. Thank you very much. You can return to the gallery. Next delegation is Bruce McKee. Mr. McKee, if you could identify yourself for the record and who you represent, you have 5 minutes as well for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you tonight. My name is Bruce McKee, and I've been proud to be a member of the CAB, the Community Advisory Committee of the YMCA's Homelessness Project for the last 2 years. Prior to that, I worked with the Ministry of Health in Saskatchewan for approximately 30 years in the area of mental health and addictions. During my working life, I became very aware of the struggles of people with addictions and mental health issues in finding and maintaining stable housing. During that period, I also served as the provincial representative on the Mental Health Commission of Canada during their 4-year study of homelessness and using the Housing First model to resolve that. The results of that study are very clear that the Housing First model works, not only in ending homelessness, but in also reducing services that are often allocated to those people, including police, emergency wards, and other shelters. So you get reduction of homelessness, but you also get a reduction of costs. And ending homelessness without preconditions. In other words, a person does not have to be straight and sober to receive a housing. That's what Housing First is all about. The agencies supported by the YMCA Homelessness Project have done well in ending homelessness using the Housing First model for a limited number of very, very needy people. And more are being served every day. But to end homelessness in Regina, a concerted plan and effort is necessary, coordinating the approaches of the province, the city, and a variety of other agencies. I therefore would like to add my support to the recommendation that's before you tonight. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions? There are none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can return to the gallery. And our last delegation is Jim Elliott. Mr. Elliott, if you could identify yourself, who you represent. You have 5 minutes for your presentation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Jim Elliott. The motion that's before you may have the appearance of doing something to end homelessness, but in my mind, the emperor has no clothes. So let's analyze the motion. The first motion, as you see it on the screen, says the city should participate in an advisory board to develop a community plan to end homelessness. My question is, what's the city been doing over the last 5 years? The YMCA has had federal funding, and there's been a community advisory board for those same years, and the city's been on that advisory board since 2013. In 2007, the Regina Community Plan that was already referenced before was designed to give key stakeholders concrete directions to eliminate homelessness in Regina. The plan was based on interviews with people that were homeless, managers, policy analysts, with government, key housing and service providers. It was also based on the results from a number of activities, including project evaluations, agency asset and gap surveys, a community planning session, and again, the review of current references. Point 2 on the city motion before you is the city should review its policies and procedures and may contribute to the plan to end homelessness. As I've mentioned, or as I presented in my brief, a number of activities were taken in 2007, some of which I've already referenced already. So what needs to be done now? Maybe there may be some value in updating some of this information, but that isn't necessarily rocket science and shouldn't need more consultants. Likewise, one assumes that the city staff in their 2016 update and minor amendments to the housing incentive policy would have considered the homelessness strategy and would have put in the necessary changes to address this ongoing issue. Point 3, the City of Regina should work with the federal, provincial governments and other interested parties to provide funding to achieve the goal of ending homelessness in Regina. Communication is ongoing with the government of Saskatchewan, property owners, developers, and landlords, as well as those that are doing programs to better understand and work with the provincial government funding strategies. Now, surely with the provincial government and interested parties being on the Mayor's Housing Commission over the almost 4 years to date, that would have had ample time to discuss funding and other issues as they relate to the goal of ending homelessness. And lastly, to point 4 is the plan to refer this to the Mayor's Housing Commission for further consideration and input. Now, this has little value in the broader scope of dealing with homelessness problems in Regina. So what does this motion do? Now, you may have a different interpretation, but I see no value in passing this motion. And in fact, if we would have taken the recommendations coming out of 2007, we would in fact have been already eliminating homelessness in Regina. Those are my comments at this time. I'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott, for your presentation. Other questions of the delegation? There are none. Thank you very much. You can return to the gallery, and we'll now go to the motion. Councillor Fondeur, if you could take the chair, please.
Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would like to move the motion on the plan to end homelessness. If I could get a seconder for that, please.
Councillor Young. Thank you.
And I'll read the motion, Mr. Deputy Mayor, is whereas the YMCA of Regina, as a local lead in the homelessness partnership strategy, has been coordinating the community's efforts towards ending homelessness in Regina, including Regina's initial Housing First program. And whereas the City of Regina is a founding partner of the Homelessness Partnering Strategy, as a member of the Community Advisory Board, including filling the role as the past chair of the committee, and whereas recently the City of Regina was invited to participate in an advisory board to guide the consultation process leading to the development of Regina's plan to end homelessness, therefore be it resolved that the City of Regina participated in the advisory board to develop a community plan to end homelessness by providing cash or in-kind contributions for the establishment and work of the advisory group. 2, that the City of Regina review its policies and procedures that may contribute to the plan to end homelessness, which includes the Affordable Housing Incentive Program. 3, that the City of Regina work with the federal government and the provincial government and other interested parties in providing funding to achieve the goal of ending homelessness in Regina. And lastly, 4, the plan to end homelessness be referred to the Mayor's Housing Commission for further consideration and input. Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of Council, I'm very pleased to stand here to ask for your support on this motion. And what is important to note from my perspective is that this is a community coming together and targeting energies and interest and the work being done by very many people in terms of Housing First strategy. And I want to recognize the organizations that are on the working group. Street Culture Project, RQHR, Sask Housing, the Regina Downtown Business Improvement District, Regina Police Service, the City of Regina, of course, Phoenix Homes, the YWCA of Regina, Salvation Army, Namrid Housing Corporation, Service Regina, YMCA, the North Central Family Center, the Fort Capel Tribal Council, the Ministry of Justice, and the Ministry of Health. So there's a broad range of those who are involved in providing mental health services and health services, housing right across the piece. And I'm very pleased to support this and ask for your support in this. But I want to clarify a couple of things, certainly for the delegation, just to be clear here. There's a big difference between the Community Advisory Board, which was established a number of years ago, which really is a driving force behind Housing First, and this new advisory board, which is simply very narrowly to develop a call for proposal, which would be happening later this fall. So the work of that committee, which we're asking for support on, is to provide the direction for the call for proposal, and then evaluate and look at what will come out at the other end of that. So recommendation number one is for the city to participate in the board, but also to provide cash or in-kind contribution. And I would suggest this may be a cash contribution versus in-kind, because the type of work being done by this committee isn't necessarily what we typically do with the city. So I would suggest that might be a way to go. In a general terms, looking at the Affordable Housing Incentive Program, we have in times past redirected and looked at where's the most active use of our money and our resources over time. And I would suggest in the previous times we did a lot of incentives for new build. Then we changed it for infill housing and downtown. And now we can look, I would suggest a portion of that, however we want to go forward, looking at providing some homelessness, for some capital for homeless accommodation, I think is quite important. Key to this too, of course, is remembering that we are one of many organizations that are involved, and the orders of government for the federal and provincial government are clearly responsible for housing, and we will continue to lobby both the federal and provincial governments to do their part in providing capital for housing, for affordable housing, for homelessness, and of course, finally, that the Mayor's Housing Commission be the instrument to which this council administration continue to provide resources and input as we move forward on this program. What's exciting about this program is that it's the community saying, and now council saying, there is a plan to end functional homelessness. So we have functional zero, and we had a couple of examples that the delegations talked about, where we won't get, strictly speaking, zero homelessness. We will have a way and method of getting people off the streets within a preconceived amount of time, whether it's 10 days or 14 days, whatever the community would say is going to be. That's exciting. That is what we want to see, and I'm very, very encouraged by that. Because, Mr. Deputy Mayor, of course, the measure of any society is how we deal with our most vulnerable people. And if we're talking about vulnerable people, there's no more vulnerable than those who have no housing and no hope. And certainly providing a stability for housing to deal with the chronic drug dependency, mental health issues that they may have, there's no other better way to do that. And I would suggest to you that the types of results are incredible. And I know that the Phoenix Residential last month, I believe, talked about over the last year the kinds of savings that have been done. And over 26 people that they actively supported in 2016-17, they saved about $1.9 million, almost $2 million of savings. And these savings relate to policing, the days in the hospital, emergency room visits, and detox centers. And the results are really incredible and are undeniable. And so an investment up front to provide stability of housing with other players around the table with respect to social services and health, policing, are an incredible benefit to our society, and it's cost avoidance as well as cost savings. So I would hope that members of council will support the motion before us so we can get on with developing a plan. Hopefully we'll have it next year that will talk about the way we can, as a community, crafted by Regina residents, how we can deal with homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Okay, we're going to have a speaking. Okay, just 1 second here. Let's learn this thing. Oh, I got it. Look at that. I got it. Green. Councilor Young. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I wanted to ask the mayor if he would give us a little bit of information about the role that the Community Advisory Board has played over the last few years to bring us to this point where we're ready to go forward like this. They have been busy. Could you give us a little bit of information about that?
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I believe that Administration Jennifer Baird sits on the committee. She can provide greater detail, but this is the organization that is the first expression of the community coming together to deal with homelessness, but I believe Ms. Baird could provide some details on that.
Ms. Barrett?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I've served on the Community Advisory Board since January of this year. Prior to that, with my predecessor, Janice Solomon. The Community Advisory Board, Regina has been on that board since 2013, and the general role of that board is to oversee the federal homelessness partnering strategy dollars. So they do a review of all of the funding proposals that come in and allocate funds through the HPS or homelessness partnering strategy. There is also a need through that federal funding that a community plan is created and that is updated annually to establish the goals and how the funding should be allocated. So that is the general role of the homelessness partnering strategy. It is exclusively for the distribution of the federal funds.
Okay. And then the advisory board that's going to be put in place now is a little different, you said? What will its role specifically be?
His mandate, through Mr. Deputy Mayor, is very narrow. It actually is providing input on a call for proposal that would lead to a consultant coming in to provide some direction and framework of designing functional zero. So it is not the Community Advisory Board. It is of that board, but it reports to the board. His findings goes to that board. So it's a small working group with a limited lifespan.
So then we can say that the Community Advisory Board has been busy over the last few years and has brought together many organizations within the community, which makes us ready now to go forward to an action plan.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the Community Advisory Board has done wonderful work, and they've actually contracted, of course, Phoenix Residential, who has provided some incredible results over the last year. So that committee has done a lot of very good work for us.
Well, I'm certainly going to support this, Mr. Deputy Mayor, because I think that this is a leadership role that the city is in a particularly good place to play because they work with other levels of government all the time, and so they will be able to bring this to that level. But also, I think we heard this evening that there are people who want to be involved in this. People in the business community, I'm sure, will be, as well as people who live in the community who want to be part of this. So do you see that as being part of what will happen when you go looking for the resources that you need? Yeah. So so I am going to support this because it serves people in need, and it's something that we could be proud of if our city can say within a few years that we have reached zero level. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? I see none. Oh, hang on, please. Are we fighting? There we go. We're green.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Chair. I too will support this, and I think this is something that we've talked about for a while, and I was able to meet with a few of the organizations earlier. And I just want to thank you for the delegations coming forward, because it brings reality to it when the numbers, and even hearing the amount of women that have been, turned away, 327 women, another 120 women and families. And so when you hear those numbers, I mean, sometimes we kind of get lost in the whole thing. We just talk about homeless, but we forget about the stats. So I too will support that, and I agree that I hope that this committee embraces the community, and that we can almost bring this as almost a campaign within our city to raise funds. Because I know there's so many people out there that would say, I want to be involved, I want to help out with the homeless, I want to donate, but I don't know how to do it. And to make it so it goes to the cause where we can come up with something larger and develop a plan. So I'm excited for this, and I want to say thank you for bringing it forward. So I will definitely support it.
Thank you, Councilor Bashani. Okay, Councilor Flego.
Thank you. The timeline on this is going to start right away, or are we going to be 6 months out, or where is this going to lead us to?
Mr. Mayor?
I can give you some general comments, and Ms. Barrett may want to add to this. But the advisory committee has been meeting for the last month right now, and they're in the middle of doing some work in terms of the call for proposal.
Okay.
That process should finish, I believe, all things considered, next month. And from that will be a larger process of going out to the private sector to look at proposals that come forward, to evaluate those proposals. But I think the intent is to have a plan in place and approved with the partnership. I would say sometime in 2018, but what that date would be, I wouldn't want to say because I don't want to overcommit to that.
So it's, yeah, thank you. That's good because, I mean, sometimes things get shelved for a lot longer and they lose their luster, so that's good. I need to correct Stephen Onda as part of the YWCA and CMHC, not YMCA, so my apologies. But it is the Halifax Holding Group that's doing these types of things, and I hope that we can further go from that and take it further. And I guess one thing I would suggest is that being in the real estate, sometimes there's buildings out there that might be able to be converted into. So I know our conversion policies have all changed. Dilapidated apartments could be renovated into something that might be suitable and fixed up and done like that. So I think we're above the threshold of the condo conversions if there's any old apartments that are in need of nasty and they're rough repair and they could be fixed up. So that would be my thought as one of them. But totally in support of this because I think it's a great initiative. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Pedro. Any further discussion? I see none. I call the question. Okay, sorry, Your Worship. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Just some quick comments here. I, too, want to thank the delegations. They're the frontline providers who are doing some outstanding work for our community that doesn't go noticed enough, and they're doing some wonderful work. I want to refer quickly to Mr. Roberts' document, the last page. And it talks about the Medicine Hat having their functional zero as 10 days and Red Deer 28 days. But he goes on to talk about, very briefly, about where do we go as how do we determine functional zero here? And the comments he has, the questions he has are really talking about, there's a time for talking, then there's a time for action. And I think this is where we're getting to. When you talk about what it costs to get there, how long will it take to get there? How many days should it take to rehouse people? These are important questions we believe will be answered through the Constitution. Absolutely correct, and this really, for me, crystallizes the process going forward. There is time for talk and discussion, but now is the time for action, and that is where we're at right now. Councilor Bresciani raises a good point with respect to the private sector participation, and I believe that the time to discuss it with them is when the plan's in place, where they can see the program. And I know as well there are many people who are interested, very altruistic, and they understand the need for our community to grow together. But when they see a plan of action, then they'll say, I want to be part of that. And that, I think, is the first step is to devise a plan, have that done, and then we go forward from there. So very excited to see this process go forward. Thank you.
Okay, I call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councilor Fundura. Move on to our last item on the agenda, which is the taxi amendment bylaw. Councilor Fundura.
Thank you, Worship. I move, second by Councillor O'Donnell, the bylaw number 2017-26 be read a third time.
Discussion. Councilor Flagel.
Thank you. I rise on this third reading again to not support it. And what I'll do is just so that give everybody else a chance to speak, I'm going to bring forward a referral motion, and I'll just give you a gist of what it's going to be about. And basically, the reason being that there's not adequate time for properly to do the administrative and the paperwork and the lottery, the cars, the drivers, training for the proper property driving and customer service to the residents and visitors of Regina. And that will be basically, and that would be brought back, maybe table it or refer it back in the spring of 2018 after our budget deliberations for 2018. And that will be the motion I'll bring forward. And I think we spoke at CPS in July, and administration mentioned that they wouldn't be able to put the paperwork together if we didn't get it done in July. And here we are at the end of August, and we still haven't got it done. So to me, that's an extra 2 months that maybe isn't done. But I guess I'd like to hear from Mr. Onright, and I'm sure there'll be a couple of questions in his way, and also legal in terms of if there's a way to keep 95% of the bylaw intact and remove the lottery component from that and allow the driver safety and all of the concerns in the 2, 3, and 4, I think it was, in the bylaw. But mostly mine is referring to 1A1 in terms of the 40 and 60% split on lottery. I think that's what it is. So if I could get some clarification on that, and then I'll give it over to the rest of
Councillor Flagel, we just in terms of the procedure, the report was approved by council.
Okay.
So we're looking at the bylaws, so we cannot break open the report.
Okay.
It would just be a referral motion based on what you said, but it can't be to cherry pick and alter a report that's been approved by council.
That's fair. That's fair. I get that. So I'll leave it on there for now, and I'll close the debate.
Okay.
As an intention.
Sure. Other discussion on the report? Councillor Bryce?
I have a point of order. Is a referral not, we can't be debating that, right?
Well, he's giving notice because he's saying that other people may want to speak to it, but
okay,
he is
then I
giving
will
notice.
speak for a moment and ask questions. So Councillor Flagel has made the comment that there's not enough time to get vehicles in place and paperwork done and that sort of thing. So I'm wondering, through you, Mr. Mayor, if administration can comment, is there enough time, if we do have a lottery, for drivers to get cars in place that are properly equipped to actually move forward with this?
Mr. Onright?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the change in the proposal brings 40% of the seasonal licenses going to the brokers.
Yes.
That really doesn't change the paperwork, as we've been told the brokers, for the most part, have vehicles in place and ready to go. 60% of the licenses would be allocated to the drivers. We would open the lottery up on Tuesday, September 5th. We'd have the lottery draw September 18th. The drivers would have 10 days to accept the licensing, which would allow approximately a month to put the vehicles in place. We would like to note that out of the 60%, there may be a possible chance that some of those would not be in place. However, recognizing that the majority of the licenses would be in place for the end of October.
Thank you. So what happens if somebody gets, I don't want to say wins this lottery, but apparently that's the way it works. What happens if somebody wins this lottery and is not able to get a car on the road? Do we as a city have a way of distributing that to someone else, or it's gone and we lose that license for the winter?
Mr. Onright?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll ask Ms. Schakowsky to comment on the detail of the process around that.
Ms. Schakowsky?
Yes, through you, Your Honor. When we draw the names for the lottery winners, we will draw a number of alternates. So if as you say, the winning applicant isn't able to get the car on the road or meet any of the other obligations within the bylaw, we will go to the next alternate, and they would be allowed the 14 days to accept or not accept the new license, and then get that another vehicle on the road.
Thank you for that. I think I'll leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Other speakers? Councillor Flagel, you have the floor for your referral. What? Oh, she wasn't. Oh, now she's on. Okay, hold on. Councillor Bershani?
Thank you, Worship. So I just have a question in regards to, I think we are very pressed for time. And, I mean, we've heard that these are, they have to still write the test, which when I contacted SGI, it takes, that can be done within a day or two. But then it actually becomes to the road test, and that takes a month. And so I guess that's how, so she indicated today, if you call today, you'd be booked in for September 28th or 29th. and that's just for the road test. So that's individuals that win the lottery that don't have their Class 4 that have to go and take that. So I guess that would be probably if they, I guess everyone who doesn't have their Class 4, would that be accurate, that they then would not be eligible then? Is that accurate? If that's...
Right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll ask Ms. Schakowsky to comment.
Ms. Schakowsky?
Through Your Honor, there is the opportunity, the individual accepting the lottery license will, the expectation is likely that they would already have their license or put that in plans, but they're not the only individuals that would be driving the vehicle. So if they were delayed themselves in being able to drive the vehicle, that's not to say that the vehicle wouldn't be on the road and be able to offer the taxi service.
Okay, so just to be clear, so if they win the lottery, then you're saying that they could actually, if they don't have their license or have any experience or anything like that, they can then, I guess, get another driver to go on in their behalf until they get everything organized? Is that accurate?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is accurate.
Okay. Okay, so I guess one of the other issue that I do have is that, again, it comes down to looking at the whole piece, and I think this is rushed. I think it's putting extra time constraint on the brokers. They're the ones that have these contracts that have to be fulfilled. They've got contracts that service our hospitals, our airports, our schools. And so now we're saying that we've got could be new drivers, have never driven, and they are trying to get these people into their business to ensure that they've got service and they've got understand the industry. And at the end of the day, I think that our residents deserve better than that. And I think that we should actually send this back to CPS and do this in a time frame that we can really look at it. So that's just my thoughts. And I'll hold my, that's all for now.
Thank you, Councillor Barshani. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Your Worship. It ill lies in the mouths of those who have created a 1-month delay for no ostensible reason to now say that we're out of time. I'm greatly encouraged by the answers given by the administration. They're the answers I anticipated. They're answers which say we can go forward with this. This is an experiment of limited size that this council very substantially voted to approve last meeting. There's nothing to say that we should change our votes now and go and stop going forward. So I'd urge councillors to accept the administration's recommendation that we can go forward and to stick with their intention to move this experiment forward this year. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Other speakers? Councillor Murray?
Thanks. Through you, Your Worship, I'll be very brief with what I'm going to say is that a lot of the concerns right now are on the actual service for the individuals that are using our taxis. What I say to that is that they are the market. Let's let them decide if they like the service or if they don't like the service. If they don't, they'll go with another provider. So I'm in support of the amendment as written, as the way it was, not the referral. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Other? Councillor Massinelli? Oh.
That'd be me.
Okay, just before you go up there.
Yeah.
Before you go. I have a question to the administration, and it is related to the timing, because as I recall, when the report came from the Community Protective Services, there was a notion that this should be in place by, I believe, July or August. That was sort of the really key time. I did hear, Mr. Unruh, I think you mentioned that maybe not everything will be in place this fall. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. You could sort of amplify that and explain what that means, Mr. Unruh?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So when administration brought the report forward earlier on, our recommendation was to move 100% to the drivers. Since then, there has been the split of the 40-60. As I'd indicated earlier, the 40% going to the brokers should be in place. From what we were told, the brokers have vehicles in place that can be acted on quickly. The 60%, other than something out of the norm, so having a driver get one of the licenses and then not being able to follow through with all of the criteria we lay out to be able to put that license into action. That would move it back, as Ms. Schakowsky has indicated. We do a secondary, so we would refer to the secondary applicant and then move forward with that. So there is a slight possibility that not all of the 60% would be ready by the end of October. There's a high probability that the majority of those licenses would be in place and ready to go to work.
Thank you for that. No other speakers? Otherwise, I'll hand over to Councillor Flagel to close debate or move your motion.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion of referral back to allow for adequate time for proper administration of paperwork, i.e. the lottery, the cars, drivers training for proper driver training, and customer service to residents and visitors of Regina, with the bylaw returning for the third reading at April 2018's meeting. No, sorry, that's not. I want it to be reviewed so that we can look at the timing of the bylaw.
Okay, so perhaps you can just restate your motion again, your referral motion.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah. I think what I want to see is am I allowed to bring this forward to have the whole thing scrapped and looked at brand new starting May of 2018?
I don't think you can do that. I think you can ask for referral to come back, but you can't.
Referral to come back in May of 18,
and the
sorry.
reason I want to explain why you can't do to scrap it in your terms is because council has already voted in favor of the report.
Okay.
And therefore, all we're talking about is the bylaw itself, not the report.
Right, okay.
Councillor Flagel.
Okay, so I'll go with that, but make it May of 2018. Stay away from budget.
Refer us to table this until May of
2018.
2018.
Yeah, and the reason for this is I don't think if I listen to administration, there is no normal in this because we're not having.
So Councillor Flagel, just again, on procedure, it's not debatable. You've explained why you want this. It's already been explained.
Okay.
So I'll leave it as a motion that's not debatable.
Yeah.
Do members of council understand the motion, referral motion? I'm going to call the question on the referral motion. All those in favor of the motion? That's true. You do need a seconder. A seconder for the motion. Councillor Findera. Thanks, Councillor Bryce.
Thank you.
Okay, so those in favor of the referral motion? Those against? Motion's defeated, so the bylaw should go on third reading. I'll call the question on third reading of the bylaw. All those in favor? Those opposed? Bylaw's carried. We're finished the bylaw, and now I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Bryce, seconded by Councillor Hawkins. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great evening.